So 2 weeks ago, I started my sermon with the theme song from the Carol Burnett Show. Anyone know what today's theme song comes from? The sermon title? Hee-haw. Hee-haw. So I'm sorry that I'm following such a great positive song with gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. If it weren't for bad luck, I have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Very good. That's right. For the youngins, Hee-Haw was a show way back in the days when we had to change channel. Came on Saturday nights at 7:30. Is it bad that I remember that? Exactly when the show came on. So every once in a while, every Saturday we would watch the Saturday Night Lineup, and sometimes I would get down there early, and I could either watch Lawrence Welk or Hee-Haw. So now when Grandma Anway came to visit, it was always Lawrence Welk, and I hightailed it to another room. But occasionally I'd watch an episode of this skit show, and this was one of my favorite bits. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. And what would happen is they'd sing the song, and then they would talk about their laments of life and just hard times. And you know, that's something about country music. It's something about the country lifestyle, and I mean no disrespect by using that term, but there's a way of bringing some realness into music, some real life into music, and that can be a good thing. I once had a patient that I was with for a long time, and she loved country music, and so one day I asked her if she'd like to, I told her that I wrote a country song, and I asked her if she'd like to hear it, and she stupidly said yes. So, would you like to hear my country song?
Yeah.
Good, somebody said yes. Thank you very much. My dog died and my boyfriend left me. I'm sitting here out in the rain. My mean boy got hit by the train. And I'm sitting here in my truck in the rain. That'll teach you to say yes when somebody asks you. Yes, that's exactly what she said. Don't get your day job, but she never asked me to sing that song again. She had dementia too, and she remembered. So, you know, in the Christian tradition that I grew up in, we didn't talk about gloom, despair, and agony. When I was growing up, all of the sermons were about, and the Sunday school lessons were about being happy and joyful because Jesus died for my sins. And the point was, if you just believe in that, then everything's going to be okay. And not only do you get the good, happy feelings in this life, you get the mansion over the hilltop with the harp and the crown. But that Pollyanna outlook, it serves itself, it serves a purpose, and it's a good thing. But life doesn't always go that way. Sometimes these dark times come in. And it was when dark times, hard times came into my life, I didn't know how to cope with them, especially coping with the deep stuff that I was coping with. And so I think that's one of the things that the church has fallen short of, is we like to focus on the positive, and that's a good thing. I'm not discounting it. You know, we need to have faith. We need to pray. We need to talk to one another. We need to do all those positive things. We need to sing those positive songs. Those are all good things. But we also need to acknowledge that sometimes life just doesn't add up. Sometimes it's not all puppies and kittens and rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes it is hard. And this story from the gospel lesson is one of those stories. It is a very depressing, sad scene. And it's also a very powerful scene because there's a lot that happens in this story. It comes to us from the Gospel of Luke, which, as I told you before, is the every person gospel. Luke is the story that's told from the perspective of first, Jesus came first to the Jews, then to the Gentiles, and then to the rest of the world. And this particular story is one of the very first times that Jesus is going into the Gentiles, and he's doing it in a big, big way. So, in this chapter of Luke, at the beginning, he tells the story of a prolific planter, a guy who goes around spreading seeds everywhere, and some falls on the good ground, and some falls on the bad ground, and birds come and eat it, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets in the boat, and he travels to the other side of the lake, and the storm comes up, and he's sleeping in the back, and the disciples get in a tizzy, and they wake him up, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. And he speaks a word, and calm comes. The storm calms down. And they get to the other side. And as soon as he steps out of the boat, this man who had been possessed by a legion of evil spirits comes up to him and bows down to him. This man is so demented that he couldn't be controlled by chains. He just did not fit into the norms of society. He was living naked in a cemetery. And he was way, way out in this lonely, desolate place. There's two key points about this location that are important. First, it was a cemetery. So as a Jew, you would not go into a cemetery because that would make you unclean for a period of time, and you'd have to come back out and perform purity rituals before you could rejoin the society. So it was off limits to the Jews. And second is the presence of pigs, the swineherd that we see on the hillside. And so that's another part of the Jewish law is pigs. Anything with a cloven hoof was unclean. If you touched it, you would have to be set aside from the society for a while and then go through those rituals. So it's a doubly unclean place. It's a lonely place. It's a desolate place. And so this person has been living there. And it's just amazing that Jesus, Jew, goes to this doubly desolate place, this unclean place, to meet this man. Why? Did he know that he was there? Did he go looking for him? Did he hear about it? But whatever the reason is, he gets out of the boat, and these voices in this man's head, this legion of spirits, as the story tells us, beg Jesus to not send them into the abyss, but to send them into the pigs. And so he allows that. Pigs go nuts, and they run off the cliff and drown themselves in the lake. Everybody gets word of this, especially, it's a big deal. You don't normally see a herd of pigs running off a cliff. And then this crazy guy sitting there in his right mind. So everybody comes to look, and it's just too much. It's just too much for the locals. And they say, Jesus, go away, get out of here. You've got some juju going on. We don't know what it is. We don't understand it. We don't want you around here. Today we have a deeper understanding of how the human brain works. And we don't believe in evil spirits as much, or at least some of us don't. We don't believe in these spirits that can inhabit our bodies and take over us. We know that the brain is a complex organ, and it regulates our behaviors and our bodily functions through electrical and chemical reactions. And so today this man would most likely be diagnosed as schizophrenic or psychotic or both. In other words, he had a legion of voices, this group of voices, all combating in his mind, trying to be in control of him, telling him what to do, and he didn't know what to do. And there was this huge, huge battle going on inside of his head. And he had little, if any, grip on reality. And we see this man today, every day, right here on the streets. We see the homeless, right on every street corner with their signs. And sometimes they're muttering or talking or yelling or raving at unseen people or things, and they scare us because they're unpredictable and we don't know what they're going to do. And they also evoke a sense of pity and compassion. We see their miserable state and we want to do something better for them. But what? How? The problem is huge. And to really fully, completely address the problem of homelessness, and on top of that, the problems of mental illnesses in our society, it's just a huge, huge thing. How do we go about it? And so today I want to talk about that thing that we don't normally talk about mental illness. But specifically something that's probably far more common than we want to admit, depression and anxiety. If you probably may have experience with depression and anxiety in your own life at some point, or you know somebody that has, or you know somebody but you don't know that you know somebody, because these things manifest themselves in so many different ways. We think of depression and you think maybe somebody lying in a bed with the covers over their head, not wanting to get out of bed, not being able to function. That's one extreme. But far more likely is the kind of person that's depressed and gets up and mows through and still goes to work every day and still is right there trying their hardest to get through each and every day. So depression comes in many different ways. And sometimes we don't even realize that it's there. And that was a story for me. I didn't really know that I was depressed until I realized I've never really been happy. And I went to a counselor, and the counselor said, "You've got dysthymia," which is just a low level of depression. It's just no highs, no lows, just kind of right there. And that's me. I've always been right there. And so it comes in so many different ways and places. But it's there. It's an illness. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to be ashamed of either. It is a physical condition. Just like getting the flu is a physical condition. Getting a cold is a physical condition. Having depression and anxiety is a physical condition. Just to give you a little background of where it came from, as we evolved, we got this mechanism that helped us decide when a threat came, should I fight it, should I run from it, or should I freeze? And that's what this reptilian part of our brain does. When we are threatened in any kind of way, it takes over, and it is right there in the middle of the brain, and it has control over everything. It controls your senses, it controls your heartbeat, it controls your muscles. And so when a threat comes to us today, just like it did way, way back when it was a saber-toothed tiger, today it's a boss who's getting mad at us. Today it can be any number of things that come to us as a threat. This part of our brain takes over and it tells us and gives us the ability to determine right away, what should I do? Should I get out of here? Should I freeze? Or should I fight? And that's fine when we were fighting saber-toothed tigers, but when we're a toddler and we have a threat and this part of our brain kicks in, or when we're an adolescent and we have a serious threat that comes against us. Maybe it's abuse, maybe it's a family that fights and has conflict, maybe it's a trauma of any kind of sort. This fight, flight, or freeze mechanism becomes hardwired. It becomes ingrained in us and it becomes a pattern that we take with us through the rest of our life, and we're not aware of it until we're aware of it. And so as an adult, we're sitting in our boss's office and the boss yells at us and all of a sudden, freeze. Or all of a sudden you get mad and you fight back. Or all of a sudden you say, I'm out of here. I'm getting out of here. I don't need this place. That's the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism coming into play. Logic goes away. And this deep, deep part of our reptilian brain takes over. And when that becomes ingrained, it drains us of the normal chemicals that get us back to reality. And that's when depression becomes part of what's happening. And that's when anxiety kicks in. And it's a medical condition, and it needs to be treated. And it can be treated. And there are many, many different ways to treat it. And so if it's something that you're experiencing today, don't suffer in silence. Tell your story. That's what this guy was told to do by Jesus. Jesus comes along and he does something. He makes us realize that there's a cost to curing this kind of person. This community had been dealing with this man. He'd been there for years. Jesus steps into the scene, and all of a sudden their livelihood goes off the cliff. They paid a price. They lost, the owner of that herd, they lost everything. And so there's a price that society has to pay if we really want to cure and help this kind of person that is so helpless that they can't help themselves. We think, oh, they just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They just need to get a grip. No, they can't. Because there's something wrong. And if they had cancer, we would send them to a doctor to get treated. And it's the same thing with mental illness. We need to send them to a doctor to get treated. But there's a communal cost in doing that, in making those resources available, because they don't really give back a lot to the society. But the society has to decide, we're going to pay that price. Jesus shows up on that shore, and he's the picture of love and compassion and mercy and justice. And that's what he proclaims to this man. He sets him free. And he sets him in his right mind. I love that phrase about this passage. They saw him sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. So if we want to help not only ourselves, but our neighbors, the homeless people that we see on the street, we as a community, as a people, have to decide that we're willing to pay that price. Now, right now, there's very, very little political capital to make that happen. But it's up to us to ask our leaders to make it happen. And that's part of something that the church needs to step up and do. We need to start talking about mental illness and talking about people that cannot contribute to society, that we have an obligation to them as well. We have an obligation to set them free, just as Jesus did. And one of the best ways to do that is to tell your story. That's what Jesus told this man. The guy wanted to go with Jesus and be a part of the movement, but Jesus said, no, stay here. Stay with this scared group of people that just lost everything. Tell them what this means to you. And that's what we need to do ourselves. To tell our story. To tell our story to our neighbors, to our friends, to our family. To come out. And that's where resurrection comes. When we are able to share who we are, to share what has happened to us, and for that to be received, accepted by another person, by the community, and say, okay, we see your warts, we see your problems, and we love you just the same. Would you pray? Holy and loving God, we understand and acknowledge that life is not always easy. And when those times come, we do turn to you. And we pray and we ask for strength and healing and hope and direction and all of the things that we need to get through crisis. And we ask for those things to continue, especially for anybody that might be in a crisis right now. We pray for your power and your healing. But we also pray for something bigger, that there might be an awakening within us, communally, politically, to go to the demoniacs, to the outcasts, to the ones that are living in the desolate places with no hope. And may we bring them home, as you did to this man. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.